Welcome back, Brick Maniacs. It's time to take another look at our minifigure of the month. So we have Landon here, who's going to go over some of the intricacies behind the creation of this German Gebirgsjäger.
That's right. That's right. Where should I start? I don't know, man.
Well, we'll cover a little bit of the history. So this was the this is the German mountain troop.
Yep.
Used heavily on the Eastern Front and deployed to many mountainous regions throughout Europe. A lot of the equipment that he is supporting is due directly to his experiences in the terrain on the mountains, and then along with kind of the just disheveled look of his face is also because he's been out there a little while. But there's a lot going on in this figure from the literally head to toe.
Yep.
So why don't you break down some of the stuff that is included on
it sounds like he wrote the product description or something. That was good. He wrote the product description. Okay, going into the minifigure, going into the fig itself. Okay, first of all, that hat. We'll come back to that. I mean, more detail, but this is a Brickmania exclusive. We're debuting it here for the first time. Super excited for that brand new field cap. But again, we'll come back to that in a second. Yes, so this is Mountain Troop. You can tell he's wearing that toque that is over his head. Looks a little bit chilly, right? He's out in the mountains. Interesting, you'd sort of see them with some facial hair sometimes because they're up in the mountains for extended periods. So
it's cold up there in the Alps.
The regulations were a little bit laxed while they're on mission. So moving down, he's wearing the World War II German anorak. So that's a mountain jacket. There's no buttons or zippers in the front. It's kind of a pullover that goes over their standard uniform. Very similar to a standard German infantry uniform. But
and that's been color shifted, correct?
Yes, the anorak has been color shifted. So we're starting off actually with the light gray base color, and I'm adding a little bit of other colors to get it to this historically accurate kind of a green-gray color. And of course, depending on how long they've been wearing it, how old it is, what batch it was made in, these colors are all over the place on really any field equipment that you'd see during World War II. And that's just a constant battle to trying to keep colors standard. So moving down, on the jacket he's wearing kind of a really, it's a lighter loadout. He doesn't have his backpack on right now, but he does have some climbing equipment, a canteen, a little climbing hammer for hammering in, I don't remember the technical terms, but just different things for climbing.
Climbing nails, yeah.
Yeah, just climbing nails, is that really what? Okay.
Close enough, people know what we mean.
Climbing nails. Rope, and that belt wraps around, and there's printing underneath the arms as well. For the ammo pouches and binoculars around. I'm just going to move this. I don't want to move it from center point, but binoculars are there under the arm as well. And moving around, hopefully I didn't disturb that too much. We have the belt, so that's a little bit newer artwork on that belt buckle there, kind of trying to capture a little bit of an impression of that insignia on the front of that belt. A little more detail than I've done in the past, so it's kind of cool. Some nice, again with that color shifting on the anorak, we have some shadows in there as well to kind of simulate it's a big like poofy jacket essentially. Okay. So you got your disheveled fabric there.
Is it a hood kind of piled up on the back side of the? Okay, so
there's
it would
a
have
hood
been
as well.
Okay.
So a cool thing that it's not shown on this artwork, but this jacket was reversible in real life. So on the other side, it's a white jacket. So if it's super snowy out, they'd switch it over to the white side of the jacket. But primarily they'd be using this side during maybe fall or whenever they're wearing it. You know,
rocky, rainy.
Yeah. And we have a pistol holster in there as well. And you have some rifles for their Kar 98. They had a slightly different version of the Kar 98. I think it's a bit shorter if I remember correctly. But the Kar 98 works good enough. At a glance, they're pretty much identical. So Kar 98 would go really well with this guy. Yeah. Moving down, he's wearing the standard, I believe it's M36 trousers. Correct me if I'm wrong. But that's been color shifted as well, a little bit to that field gray color. The Feldgrau color, and then he has some leg wraps or some putties there, and that's interesting. Generally, those leg wraps you'd see that more in World War I, but I guess it's more well suited for mountainous terrains. And moving down into the boots, which I thought was kind of the most iconic piece of this equipment. I'm going to get it off the studs here so you can sort of see them better. But here, let's put the leg up there, and he's got texture printed hobnails on the sides and front of the boot, and that would allow him to climb up mountainous terrain or icy terrain and get just better traction. But that's really what stood out to me when I initially was researching these figures. Just really intense mountain climbing boots. Yeah, so texture printed hobnails, you saw it here.
Well, when you think about it too, like the as hard as it is to capture scale in something like a minifig, you know, these nails weren't small. They weren't like tacks on the bottom of their boots. They're digging into this solid rocky terrain as they climb up the steep sides of these mountains. And so these weren't like just little studs on the side of their shoe. They were big nails that they really had to jam into the rock in order to be able to climb. So
and I think as well, there's a bigger one that might be, I'm not positive, that might be an interface for skis actually. So they had like, it clicks in. Somehow it works with that ski to click into there.
Fascinating.
But I think it also functions a little bit to get additional traction while not skiing as well. So that's the bigger one on the kind of the outside edge of the foot there. There's two of them. I believe that's for skis. Not positive, but I think that's what it's for.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, and then so going back to the hat, the field cap. This is Brickmania's first debuting here, the field cap, and 3D printed. And it's just awesome. It's got the insignia. One thing that's notable for these mountain troops was that they have this Edelweiss pin, or sometimes it's like a metal pin, sometimes it's fabric on the side of their mountain cap. And that's just kind of, it goes back to some tradition that they had back then, and they adopted it as part of their unit.
Well, and I think part of the history of it too is that flower only grew above a certain elevation, so you could only ever see that when you were way up in the mountains, and so it was kind of their tribute to themselves of like, well, that's where we spend our time.
Right.
Just
up
like
in
the
mountains.
flower.
Yes. So that is printed on this exclusive to this figure. Maybe down the road, once we have demand met for production for this figure, we'll produce more of these hats standalone. But for now, this is exclusive to the figure. Until we get them all produced. It's a little bit more time consuming to 3D print some of these. So.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we've got to print batches overnight and everything. So yes, this is, again, it's modeled in-house by our own Amanda, MN Art Girl on Instagram. She did a wonderful job on the just simulated fabric textures all around that. And that's quite, apparently there were 11 prototypes leading up to this to get the fit just right. I mean, it turned out great. That's trying to keep it in the Lego aesthetic, but also maybe trying to push it a little bit.
Sure.
It's always a fine balance. Some of the other offerings on the market I thought were maybe a little bit too cartoony, or maybe a little bit too detailed. So the goal is not to scale down something from real life. The goal is to capture as much of the details that fit within that Lego universe. I mean, we are dealing with a toy, the coolest toy on the planet, obviously, but this minifigure's head is like 3 feet wide, and he's got like giant coffee cans for hands.
Right, so how do you make that work?
It is a stylized aesthetic to all the gear of this. So, of course, you can have more detail, but that doesn't necessarily always work. So it is an artistry right there, trying to pick what details fit, what don't.
Well, and like you've said in the past, it's all a caricature of the real uniform. We're not necessarily going for the actual uniform, we're going for the Lego variant of that uniform. Yeah. So, and I'd say this captures it perfectly.
Cool,
I mean, and you have some really cool stuff that, like, you know, you can really sit down and stare at that cap and see kind of the texture lines from the printing that make it look like that simulated fabric. And then even the printing on the top and sides, I mean, it is a very involved process, to say the least.
Absolutely. Cool. Wow. This is the minifig of the month. We're going to be producing it all month, but only this month. And once we're done this month, we'll be moving on to our next figure. So we'll sell off whatever we have remaining after the month, but we are only producing it this month, and then it is done for good. I think we're capping at 1,000 copies. I don't know if we're going to actually get to that many, but it's only being produced this month. So if you want one, now is your chance. So.
Take advantage. Otherwise, Landon, thank you for showing this off. That is the Gebirgsjäger, the October minifig of the month. This is the full review video, so make sure to check that out on brickmania.com right now. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Stay tuned. We'll review the next month minifig when it is announced as well.